Hello and welcome back to File New, your best source of creator, tech, and artist news. My name is Ryan Selvy and we've got a lot planned for you today. We've got a protest that doesn't include soup or gluing people to the art. We have a camera that makes everybody naked. We have the Vision Pro with an update with personas to float around the room like ghosts. Photographer Zach Dobson introduced us to 19th century photographer Carlos Relvas, and creatives share the times that they made the biggest fool of themselves and the lessons that they learned. But we have a lot to get through, so let's go ahead and hop right on into the news. So starting off, we have the Digital Marketing Act in Europe. It recently forced Apple to allowing alternate app stores. You know how when you boot up iOS, it only gives you access to the Apple Store in the App Store? Well, in the EU, if you're over in Europe, you're going to soon have access to be able to sideload apps, which means that you can download apps from different app stores with different guidelines. And it's going to introduce a lot of really interesting things. Also, hello to Alex and Brem and Allison, Afroja, Oliver and Umacorn, Cody Bear, Yensa, Kendall and Keys, all over on the chats and the live streams. But this reporting comes from Julie Clover at Mac Rumors, and up until this point, you could only download apps through Apple's App Store, but with this new one, it's called Alt Store, it plans to launch Patreon-backed apps, like Patreon, like the crowdfunding for social, not social activists, but social creators. The Patreon integration will allow apps to make revenue from crowdfunding rather than ads, data sales, or paid downloads. It could be recurring, or it could even be like a one-time payment. You could do like $5 for this tier, and then you get access to this app. This enables creators to have a whole new avenue of revenue that hasn't really been explored yet, and you can create an app as the offering itself, or it could just be something that lifts it up. Alternative app stores still require Apple to review the process of being approved as an alternative app store. So Alt Store is ready to launch and probably will launch soon, but it's just not available right now. But keep your eyes peeled for it. And unfortunately, if you're in America, like me, it's not going to pop up anytime soon. But for all of our European friends, let us know how it is. Next up, speaking of revenue, Discord is starting to play with the idea of advertisements. They have traditionally been very anti advertisements at all with the service, and this reporting comes from Sharon Harding from Ars Technica. This last week, though, Discord introduced sponsored quests to video game makers, and sponsored quests offer PC gamers in-game rewards for getting friends to watch a stream of them playing through Discord. It leverages users' community for attention of their servers for exposure. The ads will live on the bottom left of the screen, but users can opt out of personalized promotions for quests that are based on activity or data shared with Discord. Discord will target ads depending on users' age, geographic location data, and gameplay. It's a very tightrope walk to advertising online. People get very upset with it, especially when they're in such intimate areas like places of community. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Up until this point, Discord has made a lot of money off of Nitro, which is their subscription service for a few premium features like higher quality calls and the ability to have animated emojis. And they've also been recently selling a lot of these different profile accents that you can put on top that animate over top of your profile picture. And that's been a revenue stream for Discord, but this is a new way for them to hopefully continue to be a sustainable business model. I'm a big fan of Discord, and I am interested to see what these advertisements are going to look like. Rumors suggest that the next Apple Pencil will have a squeeze gesture. So this reporting comes from Philip Espioto from 9 to 5 Mac, and Apple Pencil 2 already has a double tap feature where you can customize per your system or per your app, where like maybe it can do an undo or a zoom in. I personally have actually turned it off because a lot of times I accidentally double tap. Also, hello, Aaron. But a new iOS beta update suggests that there could be a new feature focused on squeezing the pencil. 9 to 5 Mac also says Apple has also updated the interface for pairing an Apple Pencil for the first time to support new non-existent hardware. Other rumors also suggest that Apple Pencil 3, which would be released, will also support interchangeable tips, which is something that you can have on a Wacom stylus, but not on an Apple stylus up to this point. Maybe it could be felt to have different texture or different pull. And then Bloomberg reports that Apple plans to introduce new Apple models at the beginning of May, so it's right around the corner. we'll have to check out and see if any of these rumors come to pass. A lot of times there are rumors and nothing comes to it. But in other Apple news, the Vision Pro, the headset that is mixed reality, or they don't call it mixed reality, they call it interactive computing or something. The Vision Pro got an update for personas. And if you don't know, personas are those 3D models that the Vision Pro is using to showcase Vision Pro users when they're using the headset during FaceTime. And this reporting comes from Brian Heater from TechCrunch. The way that personas work is it scans the person's face and makes a 3D model. And when they first were introduced, people were trying them out on FaceTime, and they were like cursed Sims, or they were looking like just nightmarish avatars in general. They have since updated them to make them a little bit nicer looking, but they also introduced this functionality to have them kind of float around the space and work in the environment. So this is a little thing that was on TechCrunch that was about the interaction with the spaces. But it's interesting to see because it is kind of melding this physical space and this digital space into being a little bit more approachable. It's not quite like the meta avatars that don't have legs that are floating cartoons. These are meant to kind of look like these ghostly figures that kind of come in and go out of their environment. But what you can also see is that this character over here actually goes and they can swipe on the screen and they can interact with the environments, and it can show that in interaction on yours as well. So this is kind of like when someone's on a Zoom call or a Teams meeting call and they're like, hey, can you see my screen? And they start scrolling around. In this case, it's like they have it in front of you and it's just like they walk over and they mess with it. The other interesting thing about it, and this isn't in this update, this is actually in the original update of Personas, is that when you were on a FaceTime call and you had these people floating around, the spatial audio was aware of it. And also, as people looked around and looked at different people, it did the computing on each person's headset so that the right person was looking in the right direction and pointing at the right direction. So if it's, I don't know, we'll pick people from the chat right now and say it's like if it's Kendall, Oliver, and Keys, and Keys is talking to Kendall and pointing at Kendall, rather than it just looking like he's pointing just generically at the camera or whatever, it would actually point it, and in my perspective, it wouldn't be pointing at me, but it would be pointing at Kendall. So it does some really interesting stuff here, where it's this idea of like, we all have different experiences, but makes it more human in the idea of us all being together in the same space. It'll be really interesting to see how this interacts and how this evolves with other headsets, and as Apple Vision Pro continues to figure out what it looks like for their use case. Going back to Discord real quick, a great showcase of accidentally dealing with people who are there but aren't really there was this Discord April Fool's joke that happened earlier in the week. And this reporting comes from Lucas Ropik at TechCrunch. Discord launched loot boxes as an April Fool's joke and announced it with a subsequent YouTube video. The most noteworthy aspect of the whole thing, though, was that it garnered 1 billion YouTube views in under a day. It's thought Discord may have accidentally made every Discord user to inadvertently run a repeating view of the video through a notification in the background, because Discord only has 1.5 million subscribers on YouTube, and like I said, they surpassed 1 billion with a B within one day. One comment on the video actually read, "Discord loot boxes are so good that almost 1/8 of the world's entire population has come to witness them." But moderation of social platforms in general is very difficult and tough. Needless to say, content and algorithms are hard to navigate, especially when you're in charge of creating the algorithms and following them. There's also user safety, and look no further than X to see some trouble with user safety. X named its third head of safety in less than 2 years this week, and this reporting comes from Carissa Bell from Engadget. Yoel Roth initially held the position until they resigned shortly after Twitter Blue happened in 2022. And then Roth was then replaced by Ella Irwin, who resigned last year after Musk publicly criticized employees for enforcing policies around misgendering. The company said Tuesday that it had promoted Kylie McRoberts to head of safety and hired Yael Cohen as head of brand safety and advertiser solutions. Also, on another thing of X News, there are now blue check marks for everybody that has over 2,500 followers that are verified. This is a little confusing because everybody else is paying for it, and it was kind of a big deal for it to be a showcase of supporting X, and now it's changing. People are upset. There's never a dull day over on X as far as news goes. But that brings us all back to safety and technology. Safety online with technology is proving to be an ever more evasive subject to tackle. New tools like artificial intelligence, bots, and misinformation are making things a lot murkier online, but it's also impacting real life too. And Matt Novick for Gizmodo reported that a judge in Washington recently blocked video evidence that had been AI enhanced. The video pertained to a video trial about a murder, and it highlights a new rising concern of people's misunderstanding of what AI does or how it does it. Because, we kind of see like NCIS or something, and it says enhance, and it zooms in and it enhances it, and it makes the license plate fully legible. And there is an aspect to it where we can now blow up pictures, especially with like Photoshop, and you can enhance them. But it's really not actually revealing things that aren't already there. It instead is just kind of making educated guesses based off of all these different pieces of deep learning that it has. So it's not necessarily showing you what's not there. Judge Leroy McCullough in King County, who made the decision, wrote in a new ruling that AI tech used opaque methods to represent what the AI model thinks could be shown and not actually shown. And that's super important because it's in a trial and it's dealing with actual outcomes. The computers might say it is one thing because it's just trying to enhance it, when in reality, it's not just showcasing what it is. The article that I read this about was actually calling about the Will Smith slap situation, and there was controversy when people were using AI because they were zooming in and enhancing, and the enhancement was making it almost look like Chris Rock had a pad on his face. And there were a bunch of different angles. There was official broadcasts. There was a bunch of stuff to show you that there was no pad on his face and it wasn't like a scripted thing. But people were saying, no, look at the AI. The AI is able to reveal that Chris Rock had a pad on his face. But in reality, it was just because the upscaling was doing some weird thing with his face. This was also, a year or two ago when the models were not as smart as they are now. But it's just important to remember that it's not revealing what's there. It is guessing. And to that point, they do say that a picture is worth 1,000 words, but maybe they should update it to be a picture is worth 1,000,000 generated prompts. Nuka is a camera created by Matthias Veef and Benedict Grobe, and it is really pushing that idea to its limits. The camera uses AI to automatically undress every person it takes a picture of. And Emmanuel Myberg for 404 Media reports it is meant to be a speculative design and art project. On the Nuka website, they say, this project prompts a crucial discussion on AI's potential, emphasizing consent, algorithmic fairness, and the societal impacts of AI-generated imagery. The camera is 3D printed, but no software was particularly out of reach to make. Every part of the process the camera uses is using an existing off-the-shelf tool that anyone can download and use. The software, to note, is not using any AI associated with Adobe. Adobe, which, as a reminder, this show is on Adobe Live, prides itself on safe and responsible AI. Thankfully, systems like the Firefly model made by Adobe have safeguards to prevent applications and misuse like this. But I think this is a really important piece of technology and a piece of art because they're not selling it. This isn't something you can buy. It would be totally unethical if they could, sell this. But I think that as an art piece, this really shows and creates strong commentary on the idea of these things can get out of control if they are used by the wrong people. They are very useful in many other ways, but this is an example of a very low-hanging fruit that would not be great for people to use. But that's all, of course, entering politics. And I saw this article, speaking of politics, that I thought was really interesting because a lot of the times when you see politics and activism, especially around the art world, it has to do with soup cans and people throwing soup at art, or they physically gluing themselves to the art. And I saw this recent protest, and they actually didn't do anything like that, but they still made their point. And this comes from Maya Pontone at Hyperallergic, and it was a protest that used the activation of cloths to cover up the artwork because the activists didn't approve of showcasing Agostino Tassi because he is known abuser of the painter Artemisia Gentilschi, which these are all people who are long past dead. I think this is from the 1600s painters. But the exhibition was originally part of the Artemisia, and I'm so sorry, I'm so bad at names. The part of the Artemisia Gentileschi exhibition. But because this person was an abuser, they were like in this room of all these people that were then associated with this painter. And they used this black cloth to cover up the paintings and then poured paint onto the floor to represent blood because it comes from a movement to address domestic violence. And the activist said, "We decided not to damage the painting, but to obscure it because the message is it should not be here, not like this, not in this context." That is all the headlines we have for today. But before we hop into the next segment, here's a reminder that File New is a podcast, and you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts or watch podcasts. I had a friend today tell me that he didn't know that Spotify actually had video. So yes, when you're subscribing on Spotify and you have it as a podcast, you can still view everything. And so if you're on the go, you can still check out the show. This is now more important than ever because actually this is the last Friday for File New for a little bit. It's about to get really wonky with the schedule. We will be back on Tuesday, which is super weird. That is in just 4 days. We'll be back with another episode for you. But then it's on like Monday, and then maybe Tuesday again, and then maybe Wednesday, and then Monday. So it's going to be all over the place. Make sure you follow me on Blue Sky and on Instagram. I'm Ryan Selvy on Instagram and ryanselvy.com on Blue Sky. Make sure you either subscribe to the podcast on YouTube or you subscribe to the podcast on Spotify or Apple. There is just some scheduling things that are up in the air, so I apologize. I know it's wonky and weird to follow, but I will do my best to get it to you. Also, hello to everyone that's in the chat. Seeing lots of people saying hello, and I appreciate you guys saying hi. Hello to CMYK and Catherine, who are here as well. We also have Afrija and Nuno also saying hello. So thank you guys for being here. And do me a favor, and if you could comment on this YouTube video, just letting people know that you like this show, it really helps to see, like, look, people are interested. So help us fight for File New and show that people love it. So if there's any way that you can show that, it would be awesome. But that is enough of me talking around some notes. Let's hop into thoughts. Work is stressful. Work is very stressful, and I feel like that's kind of a wide sentiment across everyone right now. So how's everyone doing at work? Is anyone feeling really burnt out, or working remotely and working from home has now created this blurred boundary of when work is work and when work hours are not work hours, and what you're required to be responding to and when? California State Assemblyman Matt Haney has introduced AB 2751, which is the Right to Disconnect proposition. This reporting comes from Sarah Fielding at Engadget, and the bill is in its early stages, but if passed, it would make every California employer lay out exactly what a person's hours are and ensure that they aren't required to respond to work-related communications while off the clock. Companies could be fined a minimum of $100 per violation, and it is the first of its kind in the States. In 2017, France became the first nation to implement a right to disconnect policy, a model which has been copied in Argentina, Ireland, Mexico, and Spain. I wanted to see how you guys felt about this. Do you struggle with this exact issue, either as an employer or as an employee? Is this something that is even possible to enforce or possible to expect? What do you do for work-life balance? I like to personally unwind with some video games, and I like to use it as a way to both disconnect and be able to just focus on virtual worlds. But more and more so, I'm also able to appreciate the art that is in video games. And video games are so different than what they used to be. Like, of course, there's these AAA games that are super hyper realistic. They're supposed to look like they're the real world. But more and more, there is actually this whole new sector of indie games that are really focusing and thriving in the idea of artwork and ways to represent gameplay. Angelica Frey from It's Nice That is highlighting and featuring this ever-growing industry and has a really good write-up on their website. The indie sector is obviously such a hard bucket to put everything in, so it's a really good article to check out. It talks about how a lot of people are inspired by Miyazaki and Ghibli. It talks about Monument Valley with its MC Escher-inspired models. There's games like Dorgon, which are experimenting with watercolor looks. And there's just new ways to approach gameplays and narrative directions in games in ways that there never was before. And it's also because there's a lot smaller developers and more people could do more, or less people can do more things now. It also is really good representation of different cultures and identities now. There's Venba, which is a cooking game that was independently developed. It's actually even on Xbox Game Pass now. And I believe you make all these different family recipes, and then you learn about the family and the culture as you continue to make it, but it has puzzles. It's a really great write-up. I suggest you check it out. And a lot of the games on there are also really fun that I've played. And then, of course, all of these things are linked already this week in the bio of this episode. So just go ahead and check them out. That was the link that was on It's Nice That. Let's hop on into Ticketbooth. So, 10 art shows to see in New York this April. This is from Hyperallergic. They did a great write-up by Hrag Vartanian, John Yao, Xmina, and Natalie Haddad. Its shows include things like Tom Burkhart, Jeffrey Maris, Devin N. Morris, Charisse Perlina Weston, Mike Olin, and Raven Chacon, among others. This one over my shoulder is a sculpture from the Jeffrey Maris show, which makes a globe out of the armpit pads of a bunch of crutches, which looks pretty cool because it also just kind of looks like an atom. Like it kind of looks like it's exploding and opening up. But another one that I also really liked was Tom Burkhart, and he uses rolls of canvas and tubes of pre-mixed paint that he found in the studio of his mother after she passed away, who was also an artist. And it is heavily leaned on to the idea of ink blot tests to inspire his creations. So you should go check those out. It is 10 art shows to see in New York this April. If you are able to see them, you should go ahead and check them out. But if you're an artist and you're ready to be inspired by art, maybe you need to figure out some great resources for you. So let's hop on into resources. For resources, one of the very fun ones that we have is for April Fool's Day. Creative Boom did a nice little highlight of different times that creatives revealed when they made a fool of themselves and the lessons that they learned from it. This is from Tom May at Creative Boom. And the first story is about illustrator Ben Talon. He was doing a live painting for a Reebok exclusive small Kendrick Lamar gig, and his marker broke and it splat paint everywhere. He freaked out, justifiably, and took his shirt off to mop it up. And as he was shirtless on all fours, on the brink of tears, mopping it up, Kendrick Lamar walked in. He notes that he thought his career was over, but it was nothing outside of a few frowns, and he just got up and kept going. He said that his career has not been impacted because of it. It's just something that he knows that sometimes bad things happen. You got to keep going. Lucy Yates says she was a young account executive at a busy photo shoot, and she didn't get everyone to sign image release forms. She said, of course, the photo that got chosen for the poster campaign involved one of those people, and it cued me driving around taking them down. The lesson: small jobs matter. Those are just a few of the examples. They also have a bunch of other examples in the article, but Creative Boom also breaks down some of the biggest common mistakes and how to avoid them. Number one is overcommitting yourself. They say learn to assess your bandwidth, embrace the power of no or not now to fully invest your creativity and skills where they matter most. Two, ignoring the brief. They say learning to interpret and navigate the brief creatively. It ensures client satisfaction and creative fulfillment. Number three, neglecting self-promotion, and view self-promotion as another creative project. How can you uniquely and authentically present your brand and work to the world? Number four, skipping the contract. A contract isn't just paperwork, it's peace of mind for both client and for you. Number five, shying away from feedback, learning to seek out, process, and apply feedback with an open mind and not get down on yourself, and also not just be scared to do it. And then finally, number six, neglecting continued learning, which you can take online courses, you can follow some helpful YouTubes, you could watch Adobe Live, there's another plug, all ways to continue your education and figure out how you can continue to learn and how you continue to craft your skill, all very important things. Because artists support each other, and Fast Company's Liz Stinson wrote an article, What Designers Wish They'd Known Before Going Freelance. So Talia Cotton, a designer, coder, and educator, says, enjoy the freedom. You're your own boss. If you're done with your work day at 2 p.m., don't sit at your desk just to sit at your desk. Get up. You've done your work. Like, be forgiving of yourself, especially if you're someone who has worked hours and hours beyond work hours for your own projects, and you get done early one day. You're allowed to be done. Be strategic about your portfolio comes from David McGilvray. He's a graphic designer. He says, whatever you have in your portfolio is the kind of work you're going to get more of as a freelancer. And that goes for every aspect down to the type of industry and product. It is most impressive project in your portfolio is what gets the most attention. Is it a toothbrush? Is it a toothpaste brand? Then get ready to spend the next 5 years doing oral care related designs. Whether your skills will transfer over to any industry or medium, clients won't see it that way. Generally, they feel most comfortable working with someone who's already done this before, which I say this all the time too, because it's like, if you don't want to do something, don't put it in your portfolio, because yes, clients are going to see that and say, oh, okay, this guy does this thing. And if you don't want to do that thing, then if it's in your portfolio, that's all people are going to know about it. You can only show and communicate what you can do through that avenue, so make sure that it's saying the right things. Mei Shui, a creative director and brand consultant, says, make it easy to get paid. Have you personally branded templates ready for proposals, contracts, and invoices? As a professional, it's important to have these for all projects you take on. Some clients may provide contracts, so be sure to read them carefully before signing. Rachel Gogol says, track your hours, but charge for value. She's an independent creative culture officer, and she said she started off not tracking her hours, but now she uses a service like Toggle. But there are many different options and many different ways to do it. I personally even have like a little timer here that, can switch up and go up to 99 minutes. And she says, it makes me feel more confident in evaluating potential projects because I have real data to inform my payment breakdowns. I also know now to charge not just for the time spent hours, but the unique experience and expertise that I bring to the project for value. She also finally says, I never give a client pricing over the phone unless I have all the context I need to offer a value-based estimate. There's a bunch of other pieces of advice in this article. Give it a read or put it on your need to read pile that you never come back to. But if you're like on the toilet and you need to read something, it's very inspiring and good information to have. So make sure you check it on out. But Rachel Gogol touched on a big thing for freelancers. How do I price my work and what's fair? Luckily, We Present from WeTransfer recently did an article titled Stuff They Don't Tell You, How to Price Your Work as a Freelancer. It's written by Amelia Tate and asks experts to provide their finest advice for how to price your work. They touch on transparency. They're talking to others in the industry, crowdsourcing information. There are actually even guerrilla spreadsheets where creatives anonymously share their rates and minimums. There's all different expertise from animators to advertisers, journalists, and producers. They also have examples from people who chime in, and videographer Rob Piney mentions he includes equipment rates in all of his pricing because he has to pay for all the super expensive equipment. He includes that in his pricing. Writer Sudo takes expertise into account. When they started, they charged $35 an hour, but now they charge $750 an hour because they're way more of a veteran. And the article addresses your fears and how to overcome them and how to juggle this idea of how much do I charge and is this ethical. They also talk about how ephemeral the creative industry is and how inspiration can be coming and going at a moment's notice and how to factor that into all of your pricing and your planning. It's a nice read and it taught me things. I've been freelancing now for 5 years and there's always more to learn, which is also continued learning. But that's been a lot of business talk and a lot of nitty-gritty stuff. So let's take some time to relax a little bit and hop on into Hyperlinks with Allie. Producer Allie Rogers is here with us again to walk us through some really cool hyperlinks. We've got nice, both resourceful links and also just some fun links. So take it away, Allie.
Welcome back to this week's Hyperlinks. Woo! Oh my God, stadium cheers, cry, like clapping, screaming, crying, throwing up. Okay, first up, myrgb.com. This is a fun color guessing game where you figure out how much red, green, and blue goes into the background color presented to you. I always in my head think RBG, like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but it's RGB, Ruth Ginsburg Bader. That's how you remember it. So we're trying to match to the background color, which is a nice little robin egg blue. So I would say there's not that much red. Like I'd actually say there's a lot of blue and green probably. So now that I've positioned my red at 3, my green at 7, my blue at 9, I'll submit. Okay, so this is actually RGB number 379. It's a 63% match, so we're getting close, but you can see that's a much darker blue, a moodier blue. That blue definitely listens to Phoebe Bridgers. The blue in the back, the eggshell blue, I think is more Taylor Swift. Okay, so let's keep going. I'm actually gonna do more blue. Okay, we're getting better, but it's still pretty moody. 65% match. Let's take it all the way up. And I'm going to move up the green to 72% match. Okay, we're getting there. Okay, let's push the blue to F, the most extreme position it can take. It's going to take an hour. Sorry, Ryan. Ryan says I have to stop saying sorry so much. 34 tries. So then when I tried this earlier, I got in 36. I did it in 35. Okay, I beat my high score. So this is RGB code number 1FC. Took me 35 tries. And so then when you refresh, you just get a new color. But I can't do this color, both because it hurts my eyes and we have to move on. That color is just way too bright for me. I don't really do neons unless it is Neon Knives, which is a new 2-player game. You can access it at cookiecrayon.itch.io/neon-knives. It is a 2-player game that requires both players to use the same keyboard and the same screen. So I'm going to invite a very special guest, someone you may not know, Ryan Selvy, to come play the game with me.
Wow. It's an honor to be on the show.
Yeah, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I don't think the host is going to love that I brought you on.
No, he probably doesn't have sign off.
Okay, so the way this game works, one player gets the arrows and the shift on the right side of the keyboard, and the other player gets the keys A, W, S, D, and shift.
So we recorded this, and Neon Knives has really cool music, but I accidentally recorded everything on the same channel. So in order to not get a content strike, we are just going to have me voice over this area. It has nothing to do with the fact that Allie beat me twice. But the point of the game is to blend in with all the other non-playable characters in the game, but you have to be able to identify yourself without the other person figuring out that you're identifying yourself. And then once you find yourself, you need to find the other player discreetly and kill them without them finding out who you are. It's a visually beautiful game. The illustration style is a funky neon cartoon style with a painterly texture. There are multiple different levels and dozens of characters. Cookie Crayon actually has a handful of free games on their itch.io profile you can play, and it's yet another example of a beautiful intersection of art and entertainment.
So that game really spikes the blood pressure, but if that game is just like really overstimulated you and you need to calm down, head to sites.elliot.computer/1-minute-park. And it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's clips of parks from all over the world that play one after the other, each one for just a minute. So this one you can see by looking in the bottom right-hand corner is from April 2nd, 2024, and it's at Charles H. Wilson Park in Torrance in the US. And I don't know, this looks like a great park to me. It's sunny, there's trees, people walking. It's very meditative. We featured some other kind of like mindfulness websites before, like the website where you literally just breathe for 60 seconds. And this feels really similar to me, where like, it might be good to have in your bookmarks as just taking a breather. Ooh, so the park just changed. This one is Heidekamp Park in Berlin, Germany. So you can actually submit a video of a park near you. Here are instructions from the website that also just give a little more information about the project. It says eventually the project will fill in all the minutes in a day, which is 1,440 minutes. And that if you create your own video of a 1-minute park, that will help achieve the goal. So this is how to make a 1-minute park. Walk around a park until you find a nice composition. Your scene should be filled with many layers of activity without any dominating elements. Record in landscape mode, so that means horizontal. Keep your shot as steady as you can. Don't use a tripod. That's interesting, so they definitely want like a human touch to it. Check the time code indicator to make sure your video is exactly 60 seconds. Obviously, if it's too long, you could maybe edit it in Adobe Premiere. And then you can just upload your 1-minute park to this arena channel. I think I'm going to post a minute from a park near me. I think that would be really fun, which is not usually how I feel about posting anything. Actually, it's really scary to like come out and say this on the show. I haven't even told Ryan, but I think I suffer from PPDS, post-posting distress syndrome. It's the sudden onset of anxiety, angst, self-doubt, and self-loathing that can follow posting on any social media app. Common symptoms include excessive sweating, refreshing your feed, an insecure sense of self, and a quickly escalating interior monologue that might sound something like this. Why did I post that? Will anyone like my post? Does anyone like me at all? Does my mom like me? Does my dog like me? Will my dog like my post? Oh, she doesn't have a phone. Why do I care? Likes don't equal love. Unless they do, in which case I'm in trouble. It's no big deal. It's just a picture of me smiling, but I'm not smiling normal. I'm smiling like someone who just got a haircut that looks really bad, but she keeps saying, I like it, I like it, until she cries. So if you've ever found yourself slowly drowning in the rip current of a self-destructive monologue like that, you may suffer from post-posting distress syndrome. But don't worry, there's a cure. The new social media app, Palmsy. Yes, an app will cure your addiction and problems with the other apps. And no, I'm not taking questions. Described by Ivan Mehta at TechCrunch as social media methadone, Palmsy is an app that lets you post to the void. That's right. You can post and no one will see it. You don't have to worry about what they're going to think about your bathing suit selfie. No one will see it. Now, you might be thinking, Allie, that sounds like recreating my nightmare, a post that no one likes. Not exactly. It's actually kind of weirder because you're still going to get likes and the dopamine hit that accompanies them because the app goes into your contacts and assigns random people from your contacts to quote unquote like your posts. So it's not really like interacting with anyone in your contacts, but it's using their names to simulate the idea of a person liking your post. It's kind of like sending yourself a birthday card. I think it's a great idea. I have a lot of post anxiety. I only really post on my Instagram stories because they disappear and that makes me feel safe. What's so funny about this app is that like I have been blessed enough to have the same phone number since I was 14. So my contacts are just such a time capsule of my life. The people who would be quote unquote liking my posts, some of them I only met once or I haven't spoken to in years. I've got Annie, cute girl wine bar, or literally this is a contact in my phone, Tim Allen, Brooklyn actor, not the Tim Allen, also actor, or Dr. Sinosian, a doctor I have not spoken to in maybe 7 years. I just love the idea of them liking a random post of mine. But I think that weirdness is part of the charm of the app. One of their developers even said they thought it could be a fun way to remember people you haven't called in a while or people that you should just, weed out from your contact list. If there's someone in your contact list that you wish you might have said something to, but the time is long past, you could always use the internet's voicemail to say your piece. Just know it's going to be available online to everyone, maybe forever. Check out afterthebeep.tel for telephone. It's a voicemail box for the internet. The number is 1442-667-2337. And as you can see, these are all the voicemails that have been left. There's 229 so far.
Hi, who are you?
Hey, this is Gemma from math class.
Hello, Internet. Just calling in from London.
Not a lot of crazy confessions going on, mostly just people blowing off steam. I'm actually going to leave one right now. Hi, this is Allie from the File News Show. We're doing a segment about this website, so I'm just calling in, seeing if it's real. I guess it's real. Shout out to the File New live stream, live on the YouTube Adobe Live channel and elsewhere. I don't know where else. All right, check you later. Okay, fun. I wonder if they'll let us promote anything on it. Cool. So we'll see when mine pops up. And yeah, it's a cute little website. I guess to close out, I just hope everyone has a really good weekend. For those of you headed to the eclipse, you have an extra seat in your car? Can I come? Even if you're like me and you're staying home because you didn't make plans and you just realized it was the eclipse 2 minutes ago, you can just look at these maps to live through the people who are going. The first one is eclipseexplorer.smce.nasa.gov. This is just a pretty basic map of where the eclipse is going to be, the path of totality, as they say. And if you use this bar on the left, you can see the eclipse as it travels across the US. And then like there's other toggles here that are really helpful. Like you can do percentage of coverage. And yeah, this is a countdown too, which is super fun. Some other cool websites, there's Xavier's interactive map. So Xavier GBA made this interactive Google map, another really great map, especially for people like me who are still slightly deluding to sell themselves into thinking they're going to go, which I am not. What's really cool is it shows the map of like historical total eclipses and also future total eclipses. And the New York Times has made this cloud forecast. So this is a good map that you're going to want to cross-check. So you can see in New York City, we only have 90% eclipse anyways, and there's a 20 to 40% chance of cloud coverage. So it's going to be a crazy eclipse. Good luck out there to all my eclipsees who are going. If you go, take a picture of your surroundings and your journey and share them with the stream. All right. Okay, Ryan, beam me up. Beam me up.
Thank you, Allie. Allie is in the chat on actually both Behance and on YouTube, but she's mentioning that we had both the eclipse coming up, and we also had an earthquake today, which was really weird. If you're in the Northeast, you probably felt it as well. But I was by myself. The cat started freaking out. At first, it's so funny. I thought originally that it was just like a truck passing by, because sometimes when like really big trucks pass, like you can kind of feel the vibration. But it kept getting stronger and stronger. And of course, my brain just immediately it's just like, we're being bombed. But then it passed. And I was like, oh, that was weird. And then my phone just started blowing up, including Allie, who texted me and was like, did we just get an earthquake? Did you just feel? Aaron called me. Aaron works like a mile and a half, 2 miles away, and he called me. So it's very interesting. The world is going through some stuff. It'll be quite the interesting weekend. Start with an earthquake, end with a eclipse. So if you end up going, please, by all means, send us pictures and videos. But let's keep things celestial since we're talking about eclipses, and we're going to hop into Font of the Week. Ryan, how is Font of the Week celestial? I'll tell you, because we're talking about Kepler, and Kepler is a typeface created by Robert Slimback, and it was created for Adobe Originals. So this is on Adobe Fonts. If you have Creative Cloud, you have this font, and it is named after the German Renaissance astronomer Johannes Kepler. And Kepler was known for his laws of planetary motion, which revolutionized. Wow. Okay. Should we just start over? Should we just start it over? Okay. We should just start it over. Speaking of the eclipse, let's keep things celestial. Robert Slimback created a typeface called Kepler for Adobe Originals. It's named after the German Renaissance astronomer Johannes Kepler. Kepler was known for his laws of planetary motion, which revolutionized our understanding of the solar system's structure and motion. Kepler is a contemporary type family created in the tradition of classic, modern 18th century typefaces. Traditionally, modern typefaces are known for their cool intellectual quality, but this typeface captures the modern style in a humanistic manner. A humanist font is a style of writing that looks more like handwritten letters, with some lines thicker than others, making it feel friendly and easy to read. It has over 100 and some weights, so if you buy it, it is over $1,000, but if you have Adobe Fonts, it is free and accessible to use for all your commercial work. It is elegant and refined with a hint of old style proportion and calligraphic detail that lends its warmth and energy. And it sounds like I have a retainer in, but I don't. Let's just move on to Rebrand. I don't have to take it out. I didn't even take the time to flip through the little pictures. Quick, boom, look at the alphabet. Ooh, wow, look at it there. Wow, look at that, it says Saturn. That's so cool. Check it out. It's Kepler. Let's get into Rebrand. Have you seen the show The Bear? If you have not, it is a great TV show. It is about cooking in Chicago, and this guy opens a restaurant because he doesn't open it. He takes over his late brother's restaurant. It's a bunch of chefs. They're all a bunch of actors except for one guy, and his name is Matty Matheson, and he is actually the only actual chef on the show, but he is not a chef on the show. He's actually the maintenance guy on the show, which is funny. But they have him as an actor in the show as well, because he makes sure that everything is actually accurate, because they deal a lot with Michelin star chefs. He is a trained professional chef, so he is on the show to kind of help everything stay on track. Fun fact, with Succession, they had to have wealth people like him, and the idea that they had to be like, oh, if you are this wealthy in Succession, like, you don't have a winter coat because you are always going from place to place so quickly that there's no reason why you would ever be in a place where you need a really heavy coat. Similar with that, but with cooking, this guy, he actually has his own line of pantry essentials coming out, which is really cool. And they are referenced after vintage style pantry items. It's actually just called his name. It's Matheson Food Company. And it's going to be focused on comfort foods like mac and cheese, barbecue sauce, dressing, and more. And it looks vintage, and it is shot in the way that it makes it look vintage. It only uses blue, red, and yellow for the colors. It has no distracting imagery, and all the products carry the red word mark stamped like the official mark of approval. He worked with the design company Wedge to create this, and this is coming from Dieline, who did the reporting on it, Chloe Gordon. I think that they're really cool. It's really strange to see. It does feel like almost even like Cold War, or even farther back, maybe even World War II, the idea of this kind of like stuff you would have in your bunker, but in a cool way, in a way that like you don't see anything like this anymore, so it really stands out, and I think it's a really strong branding of it. I am interested to see how it sells. I don't know if people would buy it immediately or if they'll think it's old. I want to try it. It looks cool. Apparently he's a really good chef, and I think it's a really unique and courageous approach, and I always appreciate when people take risks and do weird things that they don't see just literally everywhere else. So check it out. You can go to mathesonfoodcompany.com, and that is where you can flip through all the different types. It just looks like that. And thank you again to Dieline for reporting on this and bringing it to my attention. We only got a little bit of time left, so let's hop on into Spotlight. So Zach Dobson, he is a documentary and commercial photographer based in Indianapolis. He has a TikTok, an Instagram, a YouTube. He's all over the internet. But aside from being a very talented photographer, he creates great content surrounding photography, the process, famous photographers, you name it. He highlights a bunch of different stuff that's super useful. I follow him. I'm not a photographer myself, but I still learn a lot through it. He recently, or a few weeks ago, did a post looking into the Portuguese photographer Carlos Relvas, and I just wanted to show it on stream, and you guys can learn and take something away from it, just like I did. So let's check it out.
Look at this guy. I mean, really look at him. He is incredible. Look at the pictures he was taking in the 1800s. Amazing. And this is his photography studio. This is Portuguese photographer Carlos Relvas. His photos might be the most beautiful images I've ever seen from the 19th century. The contrast is amazing. They're so sharp and clear. They look like someone took them today using old techniques. As evidenced by this modest studio, Relvas came from a very wealthy family. He received the best education from private tutors, competed in all the noble sports like fencing and marksmanship, and he was a famous amateur bull rider. He was well known and much beloved in his town of Gulga. He was eccentric and charitable. He was known for things like raising money for the local hospital and benefits for hurricane victims. He was married at the age of 15, and he and his wife had 4 children, one of whom, Jose Relvas, went on to become a revolutionary and was part of overthrowing the monarchy of Portugal in 1910. Carlos Relvas won many awards for his photography across Europe in the 1870s and 80s. Let's take a quick look at his studio. What's really interesting about it is that they didn't have artificial light for photography at that time, so he built these floor-to-ceiling windows and a series of curtains to open and close to control the light. If you ever find yourself in Portugal, visit Casa Relvas, which is open for tours. And now you know Carlos Relvas. I bet he was a fun guy.
So it's nice. It's he adds a lot of education. He adds a lot of cool tidbits. He doesn't just focus on just photography. He focuses on the entire life around him. I personally thought it was really cool when he was breaking down the idea that artificial lights weren't a thing, obviously, because photography was so new. It's really hard to look at these photos and remember that they were taken in the 1800s. But he also just adds a bunch of flair to it. It's not boring. He has a bunch of really cool stuff. Like I said, he has both a Instagram and a YouTube, and he just has reels after reels after reels of a bunch of different stuff. You can see that lots of people enjoy his stuff, but just go sure and make sure you check him out. It is Zach Dobson Photography, and it's really cool to be able to see his stuff and learn a little bit of stuff. And then we just have one more thing for you guys today, and that comes at us from the folks at This Is Colossal. They highlighted this really cool artist, Patty Carroll. And Patty Carroll is a Chicago-based artist. Kate Moths from This Is Colossal reported about this, and she said that Carroll captures scenes of domestic dismay and disaster, like a woman hiding from a bug infestation in the bedroom or falling from her office chair still gripping a phone. She's a Chicago-based artist, like I said, and makes these crazy compositions, putting mannequins in vibrant, colorful, busy environments. The mannequin is the ideal woman who does not age, have wrinkles, fat, or any other human quality, according to the artist. And Carroll has increasingly gravitated to using puns or idioms from which she composes literal images like underdog, in which a woman is trapped under a dog, seated under a chair cushion, or bamboozled, wherein the figure disappears into bamboo-themed furnishings. I'm going to go ahead and actually just pull up the article itself. And you guys can see a bunch of these really beautiful images. A lot of them are monochromatic, but she also has ones that have a bunch of different colors. And they're these really busy in both composition and in posing. Like you can see that there's this foot popping out from underneath the bed, and there's an arm on the other side of the bed, and then there's all these insects crawling across and up the wall. There's another one where there's a bunch of dogs, and this woman, or mannequin, is shoved in between the cushions of a chair, and there's a dog on top of the chair, and the arms are still kind of coming out of weird places on from the chair, but everything is still super dog themed from the dog wallpaper, and there's a paw print on the lamp like Blue's Clues. And then there's other ones that are, I feel like, making commentary also on the idea of domestic life. And there's this one in the kitchen, and she's like crawling out of the sink, almost like Samara from the TV, but she's coming from the sink, and she's emptying the dishwasher, but it doesn't feel great. And then there is this really beautiful, vibrant one that reminds me of like Animal Crossing, with this woman that is on a chair. It's a mannequin, of course, and there's all of these fruit that make it feel like a picnic, and everything is picnic blanket textured from the chair to the curtains, but then there's a bunch of fruit and food and everywhere. Super bright colors, super saturated, super beautiful, awesome commentary, big fan. Has a bunch of other ones on the article, but you should check it out. Her name is Patty Carroll, and I thought that it was beautiful work, so I'm glad that we could spotlight it. But that's everything that we have planned for today. Like I said, we're here for the last time on Fridays for at least the foreseeable future for right now. It is a podcast, so if you listen to podcasts or you subscribe to podcasts anywhere, make sure you search for File New Show. It's on Spotify, it's on the Apple sites. There's even a tab on the Adobe Lives profile that has a thing called podcasts, and there you can see Teresa Al's podcast, and you can also see this one. We will be back on Tuesday. Then we'll be back on a bunch of different times. Make sure you follow me, Ryan Selvy, on Instagram, or ryanselvy.com on Blue Sky. Thank you to everyone that was in the chat and said hello today. We had a super busy chat today, which was really nice, and always really nice to see. Oh, hello to my neighbor Rico. And thank you guys for being here. It was a lot of fun. Good luck with the eclipse. Good luck if you guys were around for the earthquake. Glad you survived it. We're talking about the New York one, not the actual serious one that happened in another country. But Thank you for Cody Bear and Wade for moderating while we were here. And once again, my name is Ryan Selvy. Thank you to Ali Rodgers, who's our producer. Ooh, one last thing to say, very important before we go. All of the views and opinions expressed on the show today are entirely mine and Allie's. They are not of Adobe's. These are not official Adobe endorsements or ideas or opinions. It is just us talking out of things that we find interesting. But with that said, we're going to go. So I'll see you all on Tuesday. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the clips, and I'll see you on the other side.